My plan now is to take 6 or 7 interventions, and I'll ask Suhail Al-Ghusaibi first. Your microphone is on.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I have a comment and a suggestion. First, a comment on what His Excellency, the Vice President of Iraq, said about the feeling of citizenship, al-muwatana. I agree 110% with what he said. I think in the Middle East we need to invest resources and effort into a feeling of citizenship, and this feeling of citizenship must be given priority over all other kinds of loyalties and identities. So I agree 100%, so thank you, Your Excellency, for that comment. The second is a suggestion. I thank His Excellency Sheikh Khalid, my elder brother, for his comments, and I agree about what he said with Iran 100% again. I do have a concern, however, that the posturing that Iran has and that we have in the GCC will only lead to more conflict. I suggest that we have a peace conference, and that this peace conference is held here in Bahrain, where Iran is invited, and that we try, despite of all the posturing, we try to find a solution, because the only solution to conflict is dialogue, no matter how difficult this dialogue is, because the alternative is war and nobody wants that. So I hope, Your Excellency, this could be taken on board. I hope it could be discussed at some level, the idea of a peace conference where Iran is invited and is a key player in this. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'll address my question in Arabic.
Mr. Iyad Allawi, you spoke about the regional security, and it's very important what you said, but let us look at the Iranian perspective. First, the Iranian regime sees that the Gulf countries do reject to participate in such security, which creates this kind of conflict, as His Excellency of Bahrain said. And regarding the Arabic participation or the Arabic depth, there is a clear guide that the Iranian regime rejects that because they have this idea of 6+2, Syria and Egypt, and the Iranian rejected that after the Iraq raid of Kuwait. My question is, what is the role of regional security and the Arab depth in this security, and what about the regional role? Are we talking about Turkey, even Pakistan and India? Because we have, they do play a big role here. What is the international role to maintain the security while the Iranian regime rejects such powers, and at the same time they allow Russia to use Hamadan Air Base? So the conflict and the contradiction is very clear now. And final question, if we see Iran as a source of threat to the area, and we have other statements from the West that welcome the Iranian participation in fighting terrorism. So if we are looking about Iraq, and there are the key officials in Iraq saying that without Qasem Soleimani, Baghdad would have fallen. So what is the regional system and how is it seeing everything?
Thank you. My question goes to you mentioned in your remarks the importance of reconciliation that we need in this region, but I would actually go even further and say that Iraqi national reconciliation also has regional implications. As you know, Germany, for instance, repealed its denazification law 6 years after it was implemented. Libya repealed the political isolation law after 2 years. So my question to you is, how hopeful are you that Iraq can move beyond whatever people did 15 years ago and have true reconciliation at the political level? And if you are indeed hopeful, could you tell me why you are? Thank you.
Walid Abu Khalid from Saudi Arabia.
My question is to His Excellency Sameh Shoukry. Thank you for an informative speech. I was really hoping you'll address points that we were not aware of. As an example, of course, we're all aware about the relationship between Qatar and Egypt, but for us in the Arab world, our more concerns now is relationship between Saudi and Egypt, And I would like you to elaborate more about what we're hearing in the media, that you're getting closer to Iran. So those are all really important to us. I would like you to elaborate, if possible, on those.
And from Jordan, General Talal Bani Malhim.
Yes, please. I would like to ask that in the aftermath of what's called the Arab Spring, we witnessed a decline in some Arab superpowers in the region, and we also saw the rise of a new regional power like Turkey, Iran, and Israel, which play a major role nowadays in trying to reshape the security architecture in the region. So how can we read these new dynamics when we understand the interest diversities in the mind of the heads of these regions, really, and also what sort of conclusions that we come up to try to understand in the region. And thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And from the IISS, Dr. Nicholas Redman.
Thank you, John. My question is for Minister Shoukry. Sir, thank you for your presentation, and I, for one, am grateful that you spoke in English. Could you please say a few words about Egypt's fight against militants in Sinai? Are you winning? Are fatalities lower or higher this year than last? And how long do you see the conflict continuing? I ask you partly because, as you know, media access to the conflict zone is quite limited, and therefore information in the public domain is patchy.
And also from the IISS, Mark Fitzpatrick.
Thank you. Continuing the questions about Iran, I wonder if any of the panelists would like to see the new US president-elect rip up the Iran nuclear accord and seek to renegotiate it. And if I may ask Sheikh Khalid, the questions about Iran inclusion. A few years ago, the Manama dialogue welcomed a large delegation from Iran. These days, we don't see them. What would need to happen for Iran to be back in this Manama dialogue on an equal footing with other states?
I think I'll invite each of the panelists to take 2 or 3 minutes to address those questions. I've got another 4 or 5, so we'll have a second round. But let's start with Sameh Shoukry, then Iyad Allawi, and Sheikh Khalid. Sameh, the questions that were asked.
Thank you very much. I'll respond to the first question related to Saudi-Egyptian ties. And of course, I recognize the chatter within the media related to the conditions of this relationship. So let me reassure you that from Egypt's perspective, we have a very clear vision as to the fundamental nature of that relationship, its importance, and that Arab national security depends on the cohesion and understanding that exists between Saudi Arabia and Egypt. I believe that it is the special nature of this relationship which makes the sensitivity that exists in that any form of what might be perceived as a divergence of views or differences of opinion might be escalated in the press to take dimensions that is goes beyond the inherent special relationship that exists, and that I think categorizes the nature of Arab relations and the dependence on the pillars of Arab national security, which remain to be well bestowed upon the two states. So I believe that we should not over-exaggerate or to take at heart everything that we might find in a vibrant and progressively more agitating press reviews related to this issue. As to the case of Iran, I'm rather surprised. Egypt maintains a severance of diplomatic relations over the last 25 years and has taken no position to change that situation, whereas the vast majority of countries in the region have diplomatic relations, but I would venture to say have very intricate and strong economic and social ties to Iran. So we seem to be always in a position to view whatever might be the discussions that are underway. And definitely there are discussions between Egypt and Iran in the multilateral context of our joint membership of the non-aligned and our joint membership of the G77 and China and of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. And that Egypt has always taken opportunity of such discussions to re-emphasize the positions of the Arab nations as relates the importance of maintenance of the integrity of national Arab security. And that it has always been in a position to emphasize in those discussions the interests of the Arab nation as vis-a-vis what might be expansionary policies of Iran. It has always provided us an opportunity to present at first hand a refusal of any form of intervention and to draw attention to the destabilizing policies that have at times been advocated. So again, I would caution that such comments or interpretations should always take into account that Egypt is steadfast in its support and preservation of what it deems its national security, and its expanded national security relates to the national security of the Arab states. And from that, I address maybe a comment that was also raised related to the context and the parameters of regional security. And that is, does the Arab world preserve its cohesion and does have the ability to address the challenges as an integral unit, or is it to be incorporated into a broader amalgamation of projected interests from outside the Arab region? And it has always been our policy that we believe that in our unity and in our common ability, we have the relevance to be able to forge our national security without any form of external intervention, whether extra-regional or international for that matter. And that we strongly hold to that principle and continue to view any interventionist policies, whether from Iran or Turkey or anyone else for that matter, as an infringement on Arab national security. Quickly on the fight against terrorism in the Sinai, I can assure you that it is going very well. We are still suffering casualties because of the utilization of tactics of planting IEDs, but terrorist organizations have found it more and more difficult, if not impossible, to take aggressive postures against our forces. The fight continues with great care as not to inflict any casualties or collateral damage on the indigenous population of the Sinai, and we do so with the best interests of our nationals and our citizens at heart. The competence and abilities of the armed forces of Egypt are well known, and it's undertaking its responsibility despite the casualties and despite the loss of life, which is painful, will continue, because we know that the fight must lead to an ultimate success, and we must eradicate this process of radicalization that has impacted the whole region. But we recognize also that there are those who are utilizing and taking advantage of these organizations for political purposes, that these organizations cannot effectively operate without the financing, assistance, and the support of entities. And this, I think, the international community has to address in a much more pertinent and more constructive manner. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just as a follow-up, we had some Egyptian parliamentarians visit the IISS a few weeks ago, and they characterized the Egyptian fight against terrorism in the Sinai as a very solitary one. Would you welcome more international participation in that fight?
Oh, hardly. I believe that the Egyptian armed forces are well capable of undertaking this, and have demonstrated on every occasion their ability and their relevance and their care in the way in which they do operate in accordance with internationally recognized standards in on the battlefield, and also in their commitment and recognition of this threat and the need to eradicate it.
Yeah, Allawi.
I'll answer some in English and some in Arabic. On the issue of reconciliation, yes, we continue to have hope in this getting the political process, inclusive political process. Nobody is left out of it except terrorists, that's all. Without this, I don't think the Iraq could move forward in a steady way. We know that the difficulties, we know there are a lot of problems, and we know that there are a lot of interferences from abroad. But regardless of these, we have seen very clear signs and symptoms of the Iraqis rejecting sectarianism, rejecting the politicizing religion, calling for a civic state, and also to punish the corrupt people. This is, to us, is a very classical example of how the Iraqi people are reacting to the sectarian environment that is prevailing in Iraq currently. The issue is not Sunnis and Shias. The issue is really disenfranchising people and getting rid of people and oppressing people and not having them into properly implanted into the political process. The religious in Najaf, the religious clerics have also echoed the desire of the civil, peaceful demonstrators in the country, and we know that there were demonstrations in their millions. That's why we are hopeful, we maintain to be hopeful. We have seen also awakenings, not only in Iraq, we have seen an awakening in Tunisia, and we have seen an awakening in Egypt, that people have rejected the idea of Islamization of the politics. And this is, to me, is also examples that ultimately the people of the region will emerge victorious. مسألة Iran.
About the issue of Iran, I would like to say that we would like Iran to be a part of the Peace and Stability Club in the Middle East. But we are calling Iran to set it clearly and to have the justification in front of each other, and with the presence of the international community, UN, to reveal the fact from any fraud, let's say, like ideas. We know that Iran intervened directly, including Iraq and including Syria after they ended from Iraq. But now that doesn't mean that we will stand still with our handcuffs in confronting this unacceptable situations. From here, I see that inviting Iran to a regional conference with the presence of the Arab League, UN, and Islamic cooperation organizations is very important, significant, to reveal about the real intent of Iran, the facts of the intent of Iran in their vision, and in looking to their eyes whenever they are talking. I think this is very critical, important point, because whenever we isolate Iran to be isolated by the wide Middle East and not by the Arab states, to have real isolations and to have no entry point to spread this chaos and issues within the countries in relation to our countries, especially the Arab countries, about or in regard to the nuclear dossier or accord. When it was accomplished as a nuclear accord with Iran, there was a statement I issued that the great absence is the Middle East and the stability of the Middle East and the security stability in the Middle East. This point needed to be included with the discussions and dialogue with Iran within the nuclear accord. Maybe there is some risk that we are fearing more than the nuclear bomb. The people that were killed in Syria, this is an absolute risk hazardous situations. It's more than the atomic bomb. That's why I think that the American administration is required right now to link the security of the Middle East, to link it to the negotiations with the rest parts or the implementations of the nuclear accord. And this will be one of the pressure elements against Iran to come and set on the dialogue clear, serious tables of negotiations that needs to be end and have a separate line in all Iran orientations and through this harmful interventions, or to be a positive player in the region, what I think which is like far from here, and I don't think it will be true. And I need to comment on the terrorism. Terrorism is a phenomena. It's not simple phenomena. It's not limited within, like, let's say, like Iraq or Syria or Lebanon, but this is a circle is now more expanded and broadened. And I can say honestly that this war with the terrorism, it will last for a long time, whether through the sleeping cells or the announced and declared armed wings and groups. And as long as we have some, let's say, disagreement about adapting this community to be capable to confront all these attacks, and without having this real security, regional security, this terrorism will continue and it will spread to other, let's say, European countries and the United States and other countries. That's why I think terrorism is one of the main roots causes, is the chaos that are dominating and ruling the globally all the countries and the Middle East after the events since 2003 until now, specifically since the days of the crime when there was a targeting to the 9th of September events, and especially the days of Afghanistan. So that's why I think terrorism, we don't want to close an eye and to say that we already controlled or have the victory in this regard, but we need to have the victory in the war of the terrorism. Thank you very much.
Thank you. First, the question raised by Mr. Suhail Al-Qusaybi about a conference or a dialogue with Iran. Dialogue is not an easy word. Dialogue requires, most importantly, trust, or as the Vice President of Iraq says, ma'rifat al-nawaya, or knowing the intentions. It's not the first time we in Bahrain had a dialogue with Iran decades ago. Iran, during the time of the late Shah, used to claim Bahrain as one of its provinces. And there was no room for dialogue then because it was a very bellicose posture from Iran at that time towards Bahrain and towards this whole region. But then afterwards with the late King Faisal of Saudi Arabia, and the late King Hussein bin Talal of Jordan, and the late Emir Sheikh Sabah Salim of Kuwait, their interventions with the Shah of Iran convinced him to change his approach towards Bahrain and start a dialogue to recognize the country. And that dialogue happened in Switzerland and eventually led to the way it was arranged, with the United Nations coming and ascertaining the views of the people of Bahrain, and Bahrain getting rid of this menace that was hunting us for years and years. So a dialogue will have to be built on trust. And after that, Iran became a very important ally of Bahrain in the region, and we all know that. But less than a decade later, the revolution took place. So we need to make sure that we are not, at the time we are sitting at a table with Iran, there's a boat coming and dropping a cache of weapons or IEDs or explosives here in the waters of our country. At the time we are talking to Iran, there won't be any boats smuggling weapons into Yemen. At the time we talk to Iran, Qasem Soleimani should be in his office in Tehran and not in Baghdad. At the time we talk, we need to have a clear intention and trust, and then we can sit at the table. Other than that, will be a waste of time. Be it here in Bahrain, we'll always welcome, we'll always talk. We never refused. But again, we don't waste the time of our people and ourselves just for a dialogue while they do the other way at the same time. Dr. Sultan, you said, what you said, I agree with. I don't know why you said that contrary to what I said. No, I agree with what you said. I did not say that Iran accepts any architecture or any arrangement for security in the region. I said if Iran will want to be accepted, we accept Iran into any arrangement. They will have to take their steps in order to be accepted. They will have to stop the Wilayat al-Faqih at their shores and borders of Iran and not let it cross it. They will have to not come and make themselves as the caretakers of Muslims all around the world. If they change that, then okay, we will have again a trust and a positive view towards that. I come to Mr. Mark Fitzpatrick from IISS, and he said, what do you think of the US president ripping up the JCPOA? The JCPOA, yes, we know it's one part of the scene that we face with Iran. It's not everything. But we believe that there are people in Iran today who want to see the US president do that. And it will only legitimize what they are already doing today, yesterday and tomorrow, and they themselves ripping up this agreement and making it useless and rendering it obsolete. So don't give them a chance to do so, but pressure them with the JCPOA agreement to abide by it and to stick to it. And let's wait and see. But to take the steps now, before the intentions are clear for all of what they are doing, will be not only premature, but will be unhelpful. Where are the Iranians here in this room? I'm sure there's somebody here, but of course, we always had a researcher or somebody, but we've always invited them. They chose not to come to this conference. Every time we have issued invitations, the last time was here with Minister Muttaqi, when Mrs. Hillary Clinton was here. 2 days later, he was in a meeting with the president of Senegal, and he was told that he was sacked after the Manama dialogue. I don't know if it's related, but they themselves chose not to come to our dialogue. They themselves don't like to be exposed here in this consilium, which is very important. And so if they choose to do so, it's their choice, but we will not go and talk to people who will have only deaf ears towards us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we'll have a quick round. Everybody's intervention, I'm sure, will be crisp. From South Korea, Hee-Seng Kwong.
Thank you, Dr. Chipman. I recognize the importance of crafting a regional security architecture as an important tool in overcoming diverse challenges facing the Middle East today. And I appreciate Dr. Vice President Allawi's explanation of previous efforts and failures in formulating such an architecture here in the region. As a South Korean, in our region of the Asia-Pacific, we have poured tremendous efforts to create such a regional security structure, but to no avail, due mainly to the lack of interest on the side of the key players. So in your views, Vice President Allawi, what are the fundamental conditions for creating such a Middle East security architecture? For example, what the participating countries should do or commit to? As we just listened to Foreign Minister Khalifa, perhaps Iran, as a potential member of this security architecture, should take several steps to satisfy the counterparts in this architecture. But what else, if there are any commitments or actions the participating countries should take? Thank you.
Dr. Nelly Lahoud from IISS.
Thank you, John. My question is to Minister Shoukry. I'd like to ask you, sir, about your assessment of the new group HASM, short for Harakat Sawa'ad Masr. This is a militant group that has been operational since July this year, targeting government officials, and its statement suggests that it is avenging the regime's policies against the Muslim Brotherhood. Could you please shed light on what you think the group's abilities are and its potential future to continue to be operational? Thank you.
Ragida Dagam.
Yes, Sheikh Khalid, about the issue of Geneva again, because of persistence. You heard yesterday maybe General Petraeus, who had had a conversation or two with the President-elect of the United States, Donald Trump. He was very clear that he thought that the political process, whether it's Geneva or Vienna, is pretty much over. He called it Humpty Dumpty, and he was quite clear for me anyway, that he was expecting the partition of Syria. In light of this reality, what else are you thinking? What can you put forward? And I'd like to ask Mr. Allawi, you know, we understand the worry about the militias and Hashd al-Shabi, but again, given that there is a new president coming to the White House, what are you proposing should be done practically in order to stop the export from Iran of the Revolutionary Guard example to Iraq and otherwise? And Mr. Shoukry, why isn't Egypt objecting to the presence of these militias in Syria, given the fact that your position is that you strongly support only the army? That is why, as it said, you support the army of Bashar al-Assad in Syria. Thank you.
Thank you. Isabelle Lasserre from France.
Yes, this is a question for Minister Shoukry. Minister, last month in Varsovie, the Polish defense minister pretended in an interview that your country was about to give to Russia or to sell to Russia the Mistral warships which were sold to you instead of Moscow after the war in Ukraine. Do you have a comment on this bizarre assertion?
My question is addressed to Sheikh Khalid, the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Bahrain. You indicated, Your Excellency, at the beginning to the GCC summit that were conducted 2 days ago in Bahrain, and to the Gulf Summit, and with the UK and with the Sakhir statement. The observers noticed that the concentration was on the defensive side and the security side, and the union was suspended as it was always since the summit of Riyadh 2011. All these conflicts is surrounding us from north, south, all around the place. So don't you think that is proper while we are witnessing that there is a coordination developing among all the GCC countries? And I think the security exercise that were conducted in Bahrain is clear evidence for this. Don't you see that it's possible to establish a military coalition among all the GCC countries, similar to the NATO that is among all the European countries and members, to confront all the threats that are very close from us, that is threatening the security, the stability of the GCC countries, under the umbrella of the absence of the security coordination, and fill this huge security gaps. Thank you, sir.
Bilal Saab from the United States.
Since we're talking about regional powers and Middle East stability, I thought I would mention a country that is both a regional power and actually has a huge say over Middle East stability, and that's Israel. Unfortunately, it hasn't been mentioned yet. If any of the three distinguished diplomats could mention the expected role of Israel in this regional security architecture that we're talking about, I would much appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'll come back to the panel. They each have 3 minutes. Iyad Allawi first.
Thank you. On the regional security, it's important to exhaust our efforts, really to get to know in front of the international community where Iran is heading. Like in Korea, the discussions and dialogue continued for a while until Korea decided that it is going its own way by developing its arms of mass destruction. But we need to establish with Iran this fact, so at least the world will stand with us against Iran. The world will understand where Iran is heading and what Iran is doing. This is why we are thinking, I am thinking personally, that this is an important step to take, and it's a brave step. I'm not sure that it's going to succeed. I am, in fact, sure that it won't succeed. However, we need to give an attempt to this. We should not forget also that the region is fatigued with the problems that have been occurring in the region, from Iran and from other places, from terrorism and from the problems and from the economic problems. But that's why I believe very strongly that probably the time is ripe now to recreate the regional security pact. On what we would expect from the new administration, we need to wait and see who is going to be in the new administration, and we need to wait and see what is the policies of the new president of the United States. During the past decade rather than decades, we saw that America was not a proactive player in the Middle East, except now recently in facing and confronting the terrorism and terrorists and extremists. But we have seen them turning a blind eye on what Iran was doing and the damages that Iran have inflicted, not only in Iraq but elsewhere in the region. It is important to keep lobbying the United States. We share a lot of common grounds with the United States, and we have to bring the United States to understand that a pressure should be applied in the right places and the right time to prevent not only Iran, but to prevent incidents that are happening in Iraq, such as the popular uprising. And let me elaborate on this issue. The popular mobilization is an important asset. Some of it is an important asset. It was a response to the Marja'iyya, when they called for to join the army in a sacred fight against the extremists and against terrorists. But also with the believers who went to fight, and some of them became martyrs and some of them became handicapped. A bunch of people came along, and people who have no real interest except to expand their own selfishness. We always thought that the Hajj al-Sha'bi, the popular mobilization, who is eligible, who is ready to be accepted in the army and the police and the federal police, they can go and join. To create a parallel army in Iraq, something similar to other institutions such as in Iran, is unacceptable to the Iraqi people. But unfortunately, it was passed through the parliament, and I would say by accident, not by design. People were some prepared in a time of vacation, and the law was passed. But we are not going to stop and accept this. We are going to continue to fight this, and we are going to continue to try and rationalize and separate between the real and genuine people who fought ISIS and to get them into the armed forces and to the police, and between those who are trying to take advantage and run a group of warlords in the country. Thank you.
Sameh Shoukry.
Thank you. Related to this supposed new group called Hasm and its terrorist operations in Egypt, I think it's important here to again make the distinction that whatever these groups are called, they all have the basic fundamental ideology that drives them, which is the manipulation of society and the homogeny of political systems, and that whatever their justifications, it all covers the desire to inflict on the societies in which they operate the damage and the manipulation that provides them the opportunity to govern. And it is that perspective of either we govern you or we kill you that the Egyptian people have refused to support and have made every effort to repel. And again, the importance is not to give justification on any count for any of these groups. We experienced in the 70s and the 80s the international community indirectly giving justification that the potential of the rise of terrorism and fundamental ideology is related to political or economic or social conditions. And I think that experience, recent experience has shown that it has nothing to do with any of those elements, and that we have had foreign fighters who have come out of developed societies in the West, neither derived of political participation or social justice or protection of human rights or economic abilities. So it's again, I think, important not to fall into the trap of finding any form of justification for what is fundamentally, whether it's called Hasm or ISIS or Boko Haram or Shabab or Muslim Brotherhood, they are all one and the same, operating and the interrelationship and the common desire to reinitiate an exclusive caliphate, homogeneous entity, I think is well known. As for Raghda's miscategorization of what our policies are, our policy is that we do not deem it as appropriate, nor is it acceptable to continue the military struggle in Syria, that the Syrian people must be at the forefront of our concern. We have no particular support of any of the participants in this civil conflict, but we do recognize the will of the Syrian people, the national Syrian opposition that we have hosted and that we continue to deal with, and that we have no intention of diverting from our repulsion of the terrorist organizations who have filled the vacuum in Syria and who have taken advantage of the conditions in Syria to interject themselves on the premise of deposing a government, and thereby we give again justification for their operation in Syria. I don't think we will ever be in a position to support ISIS or Nusra or other fundamentalist radical organizations operating in that theater, nor are we going to support the continuation of this conflict, but have undertaken every effort to consolidate and reinforce the need for a political dialogue and the end of the conflict and the inclusion of all of the various political components of Syria in that political arrangement to end the conflict and to regain Syria, preserve its stability, territorial integrity, and sovereignty. There have been comments that I think have been taken out of their context when there was a reference to the importance of national armies. And definitely we do believe that national armies are the best endowed to take up the war against terror, whether in Egypt, whether in Libya, whether in any part of the world. National armies, the preservation of the national state with its institutions, have the main responsibility of protecting the societies to which they are associated with. Now, I don't think we should confuse that general concept and try to implement it and misrepresent those statements as in any way supportive in a specific situation. Then the issue of our Mistrals, we are proud of the cooperation that has existed between us and France. We are proud of the ability of the Egyptian armed forces to be able to absorb and put in operation the equipment that we have obtained, among them the Mistral, which is well integrated into the armed forces of Egypt, which is now contributing to the security and stability of the Eastern Mediterranean. And the ludicrous rumors that they will be sold is, I can say, are categorically denied, and the two ships are operational in both the Red Sea and the Eastern Mediterranean with fully Egyptian personnel staffing them, and will contribute to our defense and to that of our partners. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Khalid.
I promise to speak for 1 minute, I promise you, John. To Mr. Kwan from Korea, what else if Iran doesn't change? I think the answer is we will continue to be on our toes, facing any aggression as long as it takes. The question coming from Mrs. Raghida Dargham, we hope to see, you mentioned what was said by the U.S. President-elect. We hope to see, a serious commitment to solve Syria first. We heard how committed the U.S. in fighting Daesh, and we are with the U.S. in that, and we are also committed, and we welcome that. But also, it will only make it faster, more effective if we solve Syria in a strong manner, and the United States and its international allies are capable of doing so. The question by Mr. Bilal Saab, why Israel was not mentioned, well, many countries were not mentioned in the region, not only Israel, but that doesn't mean that they are not addressed. When I said that every country in the region can come, I meant it. Every single country in the region can come, but can come in order to help and not to fragment or make it difficult for us. So Israel has a commitment to peace, as they say, and they will have to reach peace and make sure that there is an independent Palestinian state. And after that, there will only be the right atmosphere for them to be helpful in the region. I will turn to Arabic now. Ahmed Al-Amr, you سألتني سؤال.
Ahmed Al-Amr, you asked a question about the Gulf Summit, that it has focused on the security, defense, and economical aspects, and you spoke about a military coalition which exists, and we have a joint defense agreement and joint forces in Hafr al-Batin and KSA, and continuous coordination, and there are joint operations. So the action is there, and it is similar, if not more than other military coalitions in the world, and this is what we are sure of. And there is no absence for any union, and a union with all the actual economical factors, military, security, defense, and the cohesion does exist, and if anything is left, it's only the name. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the robustness of your presentations, the frankness of your answers, and your commitment to address all the issues, ducking none. All this helps to deliver more transparency to the strategic debate, which is, of course, the purpose of this Manama dialogue. So thank you very much. We have a coffee break now, and we reconvene at 12 o'clock for the third plenary. Thank you.